Second.
Later than I did.
Yeah, that much.
You were in the new Navy.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. This is May 12th, 1988. This is Joe Todd, an interview with Mr. Lewis Smith
Yes.
in Kansas City, and you live in Las Vegas.
I live in Las Vegas. I live at, you want the address?
Yeah, please.
6650 West Flamingo Road, room 101, Las Vegas, 89103.
So where were you born?
I was born in Carlisle, Arkansas.
And when's your birthday?
My birthday is the 29th of July, 1904.
Okay. Why did you join the Navy?
I was a boatswain mate.
Okay, but why did you join the Navy over the Army or the Marines?
Well, I was shining shoes in a barber shop there, you know, and this sailor come home on leave, and he was such a neat looking guy, and he'd come in there every day and get his shoes shined, and would give me a tip, which nobody else ever did, and I just fell in love with the Navy. I just wanted to join the Navy. At that time I was about 14 years old, and I wanted to join the Navy. From then on, I wanted to join the Navy.
And when did you join?
I joined the Navy in 1923.
You know what month and day?
Huh?
You know what month and day you joined?
Yeah, I joined the 31st of August, 1923.
And where'd you go for boot camp?
I went to Great Lakes. I joined the Navy in Detroit, Michigan.
Okay, where were you shining shoes?
Where I went from Detroit to the train station was in Great Lakes, Illinois.
Okay, when did you move from Arkansas up to?
Well, I'd run away from home when I was 16. My mother had told me that she would not sign for me to go to the Navy. I wanted to try to go when I was 16, but I couldn't get in, and she told me that I would never join the Navy, so I left home. And I come to Oklahoma, and I worked in Bristow, Oklahoma as a 16-year-old kid. I worked in a restaurant there washing dishes. A little restaurant called, at that time, Bristow was an oil booming town, and I worked in a little restaurant there called the Busy Bee Cafe, and I rode a freight train in there, and I later left there, and I went to Danville, Illinois, and didn't stay long, but I had visions of going to work for Ford Motor Company in Detroit. Well, when I got up there, I was 17 years old, and I tried to join the Navy, but my folks wouldn't sign for me. So I tried to work for the Ford Motor Company, but 2 or 3 times I lined up there, but they wouldn't, because I was a drifter. They called me a drifter. I didn't have well, they didn't hire anybody that was just coming in because they figured they wouldn't stay, you know. So I eventually went to Flint, Michigan, and I worked at the Fisher Body Works there. And I put in, every place I went, I put an application in for the Navy, but my folks wouldn't sign them. But so I was 19 years old when I was in Flint, Michigan, and one day I was on the streets there in Flint, and a neighbor recruiter saw me, and he told me he had my papers signed. So I went right in the Navy right then. I didn't even go back where I was, lived or nothing. I just went right up. And I never left for 30 years.
I'd like to back up. Was Bristow a rough town when you were working there?
It was an oil booming town, and it was yes. I don't understand what you mean by rush town.
I mean, a rough town. You had a lot of rough people.
Oh, man, it was rugged. It was really rugged. Yes, it was.
What kind of house did you live in there in Bristow?
What?
Where did you live in Bristow?
Well, I went into Bristow. Who was a friend of mine. We left home together, and we didn't have a job or anything, and we slept in a. There was a guy that had a garage there that stored cars at night, you know, and after they get the cars stored, well, he'd let us sleep in one of those cars, and we actually bummed our food. We couldn't get a job. We were too young, and finally I went in this restaurant, and the guy. I went in there and told him that I was hungry and wanted something to eat, but I wanted to work for it first. So many people would eat and then they'd leave. See? So I told him I'd like to work a couple hours and get something to eat. So he put me to washing dishes, and I washed dishes for about an hour and a half or 2 hours. And he told me he was ready to feed me, and I asked him if he'd give me a meal some other time, because as those plates come back in there, I ate everything on them plates, and I couldn't possibly eat them, so I wasn't hungry. So he thought I was a pretty good guy, so he gave me a job washing dishes. And he had a room upstairs, and I lived in a room upstairs, and I eventually made busboy, and then I joined the union at there was a cook there that got me in a union, and I got to be a waiter on the counter. So I did pretty good there, and I must have stayed there a couple of years, I guess. And then somebody wanted to go to Detroit and work for Ford, so that's what I tried to do. But I now joined the Navy in Flint, Michigan.
Tell me about boot camp. The Great Lakes.
Boot camp. Well, it was quite naturally, it was quite a thing. In fact, to me, it was wonderful. The company, we had a chief that was in charge of a company, like I'll say Company 36, or I don't know what it was, but the name of the company, and I imagine it was 100 people in this company, and we drilled together all the time, and we generally drilled about hour and a half in the morning and an hour and a half in the afternoon. And then we had to keep the barracks clean where we lived, and we eat in they had cafeteria, and we eat there. So we had to scrub our own clothes. We took a bath every day and scrubbed our own clothes, and had a line to hang them on, and they had a guard out there out of our company. You guard the clothesline so nobody steal your clothes, and then we also had guard on the gates and things like that. We had guard duty, and then we had movies at night, and it's a very, very nice place. They had a big ravine there, and it just was a beautiful, beautiful place, and I enjoyed it very much, because we had school, like seamanship school, and school on how to take care of yourself, and I stayed there 3 months. Was in training 3 months, and that's when I left and went to the Oklahoma.
Where did you go aboard the Oklahoma?
I got to board about the 1st of December in 23.
And where did you go aboard?
I went aboard in San Francisco.
San Francisco.
I had quite I don't know if you wanted to know it, but we went across on the train, and I think it took us 5 days or something like that. But all our clothes we used to roll our trousers, and then we put clothes stops on, tie them, see, and then they go in the sea bag. And all our clothes was in the sea bag, and as we went across the country, those sea bags were stored someplace, you know, in a baggage car or something. I don't know, but there's a whole trainload of it. And when we got to San Francisco, it was Friday evening, and so I was assigned to a division, and they said I had to go to inspection Saturday morning. See? So I had to undo these dress blues I had, and boy, they were wrinkled, and you know, in fact, I'd never worn them, I don't think. And those hats they had, they would just fold down. They didn't have the brims like they have them now. They had to have them sewed. See? So well, anyhow, I went to this inspection, and God, I must have stuck out like a sore thumb. All these people in tailor-made blues and everything, you know. And here I stood there with it, scared half to death, and open ranks. The captain come up through the middle of the ranks, you know. And naturally, he spotted me, and now he says to me, "Where are you from, son?" Now he meant, what training station did I come from, you know? But I didn't know any better. I said Arkansas. You know, he said, "Where are you from?" I said Arkansas. See? And he looked at me and he said, "I thought so." You know. Well, it hurt me real bad when he said that. And his name was William Pitt Scott, and I'll never forget his name as long as I live. And I hated the ground he walked on, because I thought he insulted me real bad. But as it had turned out, it was real good for me, because my division officer was from Lone Oak, Arkansas, and my boatswain mate, first class in charge of the division, he was from Carlisle, where I live, but I didn't know it, you know. I didn't, but anyhow, they took charge of me and got the tailor to make me some tailor-made blues, and had paid for about 50 cents a month. And, I think I was drawing $23 a month when I went aboard ship, and later on I made seaman second, draw 34. But I stayed. I got along real good after I got first started, because the division officer naturally helped me, and the boatswain mate helped me, and I made third class boatswain mate in 2 years, which was really something unheard of at that time. See, but they took care of me, and I just got along real well.
Would you tell me about the Great Cruise of 25?
The what?
The Great Cruise of 1925.
Yes.
Going to Australia.
Yes. Well, and I don't know dates, but it was in, I think it was in July. I'm pretty sure it was in July.
Of what year?
1925.
25.
And we left San Pedro and we went to Honolulu. And I'm sure we stayed there about 10 days. And, well, they had, the whole fleet was in there, see. And, of course, going ashore, all they had was just bootleg joints and things like that. But we didn't have much liberty. We didn't see much in Honolulu, because it was crowded and it was hard to get liberty in. And when we left there, we went to Samoan Island, and when we got there, no one was allowed to go ashore there that had ever had a venereal disease, because the island of Samoa was free of any venereal disease never had any there at any time. So anyone that had ever been on the venereal list or anything were not allowed to go there. See? But they sent all these bumboats that come out around the ship, you know, and they'd have liquor and souvenirs, and they trade them to you for underwear and or anything they could get. They trade. They especially wanted clothes and cigarettes and things like that. The bumboats would, everybody was trading. See, so I drew shore patrol. I had to go into Samoa and do shore patrol, and there come a great big Samoan down the street, and we stenciled our clothes right across here. See. And I had some brand new skivvy shirts in my locker, and evidently someone took a couple of them and traded them to somebody first. And there was a great big Samoan woman with L.P. Smith right across here. Oh, I couldn't do that. I couldn't take it away from them or anything, but everybody thought that maybe that I traded it to her while I was there. See, but I didn't. See.
What did people trade for the clothes? What would they get for the clothes?
Well, what did they trade?
Yeah.
Mostly liquor and things. Mostly liquor. And people, these sailors, they drank quite a bit then, see. And but I would say mostly liquor. But, well, then we left there, and we crossed the equator, and went to Samoa. And we had quite a little thing when we crossed the equator. There wasn't very many people on there that had crossed the equator. So they call them shellbacks. The ones that had gone through there were shellbacks. See? But they run you through a lot of initiations, you know, and things. And but they had to stop it because we had so many people that wasn't shellbacks that they decided they was going to initiate them instead of them initiating us. So finally the captain stopped it. He said, "You go through your initiation." So we did.
And
then we went to Australia.
Okay.
And then we pulled into Australia sometime in July, and I think it was around the 25th of July, 1925. And I had my 21st birthday there on the 21st birthday on the 29th of July in Melbourne, Australia. And that's the first time I'd ever got drunk or anything, but they had regular bars and everything there. See?
Tell me what happened.
Well, start off with, when we went into Australia, a lot of those Australian men were killed in World War I, an awful lot of them. And the ratio of women our age, or a little older, were about 10 to 1, 10 women to a man, see. And getting a lady friend was no trouble. I mean, they just got you. You didn't get them, they got you, see. So you could go through the parks at night and just every one of them, on every bench, there was sailors and women, see. And the fact is, even a man come down, not one, but many of them, come down to the ship and maybe had a couple of daughters at home, and he'd take a couple of sailors out to his house for dinner, you know, and introduce them to his daughters and things. And it was a wonderful, wonderful time. And I don't know, I had 2 or 3 shipmates we were buddies, you know, or I would call them shipmates. So on my birthday, we decided to go to the bar and get drunk. So we drank champagne, and champagne is a funny drink. Next morning, you take a drink of water and you're just as drunk as you was that night. So just had a wonderful time on my birthday.
Do you remember what bar you went to?
Huh?
Do you remember what
No,
bar you went
I
to?
don't. No, I don't. There was quite a few of them, but see, they mostly all drank Scotch, and they very used any ice at all. And their beer, they didn't ice their beer down at all. They drank their beer at room temperature. And but it's the first legal bar I was ever in, you know, that
What was the purpose of the Great Cruise of 25?
That what?
What was the purpose for the Great Cruise of 25?
You know, I don't know. I don't know. Tell you the honest truth, I don't know. I think it was a goodwill tour. That's what that's what they called it.
And where all did the Oklahoma go in 25?
Well, when we left there, we went to Auckland, New Zealand, and we stayed 10 days in Melbourne, and we went to Auckland and stayed 10 days, and then we come back to Honolulu.
How was New Zealand?
No, well, they were different from in Australia. Everybody got acquainted just like that. I mean, it was quick. I mean, everybody wanted to get acquainted with you in Melbourne. But then when we went to New Zealand, the people were very shy. I mean, until you got acquainted with them. But after you got acquainted with them, they were the best people we ever run into. They were much, I don't say nicer, but much friendlier, real down good friendship than it was in Melbourne. But Australia was quick to get acquainted with, but not as good friends after you got acquainted. New Zealand, it took a little while to get acquainted, but then after you got acquainted, they was really better friends than the people we thought, and than the people in Melbourne.
What about Hawaii? How were the Hawaiians?
Water?
No, Hawaii. They're in Honolulu. How were the people there?
How was the people?
Yeah.
You know, at least half of the people, or more than that, were Hawaiians or Portuguese or Japanese. They were all not very friendly. Not very friendly. I mean, you had very little companionship there as far as meeting a lady or something like that. You just didn't do it. That's all. Of course, Honolulu wasn't as big a place as it is now, and it was very few. Well, there wasn't anybody that I knew of that ever would be asked out to dinner or anything like that. See, you just meet them in the bar, and they try to get everything out of you they could. And that's exactly what Honolulu was.
What's your fondest memory of the Oklahoma?
Well, I really don't know. I know it would almost be my birthday in Melbourne. I'd say almost, but I would say our fondest memory was our cruise to Australia. That was just wonderful. I mean, we just had a wonderful time. And I eventually, now later on in my naval career, I lived in Honolulu for 3 years. My wife and children were with me. The fact is, we were there when the Japs invaded Honolulu and Pearl Harbor, and I was on shore patrol at the time. Now I'm kind of ahead of myself, but I did tell you that.
Yeah.
But,
I was going to ask. Did you witness the attack of Pearl Harbor?
Yes. I like, let's say I was chief boatswain, and each ship, they would say they wanted so many guys for shore patrol. They called it permanent shore patrol, 3 months shore patrol. In other words, you go over there and stay over there, and they give you $10 a day subsistence money, you know, and things like. But so anybody that was married and had their families out there, well, that was wonderful. Now I was on the Northampton. I had left the Oklahoma and gone to the Northampton. That's cruising. But my family was there, so they asked me if I wanted a shore patrol because it gave me $10 extra a day, and I was with my family more, and never thinking, you know, that the Japs were, well, we knew they were coming, but we didn't know when. But so I went on this 93-month shore patrol, and I lived with my family, and I'd go in and work 8 hours, and then I'd come back home, and I wouldn't have to work the next day, and then go back. But the day of like Saturday night before they attacked on Sunday, I went to work and I was supposed to get off at 6 o'clock at night and go home. See? But it seems that every sailor that was ashore was drunk that Saturday, and I mean there's a lot of them ashore. The whole fleet's out there, just about. So the patrol officer come to me and he said, told me I couldn't go home now. I have to wait because I had so many drunks. We couldn't do anything with them. We had to. Fact is, we was even sending them home, sending them out to the Navy Yard in cabs and everything else. We just had no way to transport them, get them back to the ship. See? And so I didn't get off till 2 o'clock in the morning, trying to get people back to the ship. And it seems that the Japs were just buying them drinks. If a person had thought, no one did, but a person would have thought that this was wrong. Somebody is getting awful big-hearted with their drinks and everything, because they got every sailor ashore drunk, just about. See, and so I went home at 2 o'clock, and I told, as an expression, I told my wife I was going to bed, and I said, I don't wake me up in the morning, even if the Japs raid Pearl Harbor. I don't want you to wake me up. Just saying, And she woke me up at 8 o'clock, and I told her it was only a drill. And she said, come back again, and she said, you better get up. This is not a drill. See? So then I had the radio on, and they told me to report back to the headquarters of the Shore Patrol. So I had to go back there, and I went right away. And then I took a bus. They had me on a bus with Navy Yard workmen. I had a rifle. I was supposed to protect them, take them back out to the Navy Yard. But these planes were coming strafing down the highway. The highway was full going back down, and they were strafing all along, hitting every cars and everything else. And so when we got down to the dock with these people, they were just making their second raid, and you could see them. Well, people on the dock were throwing spuds at them, potatoes, but they naturally didn't do it. But you could see that Jap just as plain, just coming. They were going in and dropping bombs on the ships, and saw the Arizona blow up. The Oklahoma turned upside down. The Oklahoma turned completely over, upside down, and I think about 10 minutes it took for that ship to turn completely.
When you saw the Oklahoma upside down, what was your reaction?
Yes, I did.
What was your reaction?
I don't know. I mean, it's everything was in such a turmoil that it's hard to naturally. I'd been done a long time on the ship, and it hurt very deep to see it turning over like that. See, but now the Arizona went right straight down. Oklahoma. I understand and I can see it just plain as day.
Did you see the Oklahoma turn over?
Seen it turn right over, upside down, and 10 minutes it took from straight up to completely out. The reason that it went so quick is Oklahoma was slated for Admiral's inspection on Monday morning. This was Sunday. On Monday, they had all their double bottoms open for inspection. They're cleaning them and getting them ready for Admiral's inspection. That's, once every 3 months they would do this. They'd open up all their hatches. The ship was completely open. In fact, they didn't fire a shot. All their firing locks off was up in the armory. They was cleaning their firing locks, and so whenever Admiral come over, everything was neat and clean. Well, that's the reason she turned over so quick. And did you want to go? You getting tired?
No.
Okay.
I would like to get both of you just discussing different details you did in the ship, like holystoning the deck, polishing
Yeah.
bright work, and all
Well,
that?
one thing I was gonna bring up to this gentleman, what is your name again?
Smith,
Your first name?
Lewis.
Lewis, mine is Jerry, of course.
Yeah.
Lewis, talking about the money, people stealing. Well, my sister, which I was very fond of, was getting married, and my brother was wrote to me, tell me how much she wanted to get some linen, but it was kind of expensive, so I was saving up all my money, and surprised that as little as we made, I had quite a little fun, and I was getting ready to send it to her. Well, to show you how efficient the Navy police protection is, we had battle stations, and I put for what reason I don't know, they said if you have money with the cashier, draw it out. Why they did that? Because if they expected the ship to sink, the money was no good anyway, going out for battle, and so it would be safer there either way, because there's no way to protect your money mid-ship. So I put my money in the ditty box. We went out to battle stations. When I came back, the money was gone. Somebody naturally had watched me put it away.
Yeah.
But what amazed me, well, I was actually ashamed that I was that careless. But how they found out that the money had been taken. Of course, they brought down one man. Evidently, he had a reputation before he came aboard ship, because the kind of questions they were asking from bygone days, he evidently had no evidence, because he took it all in stride with it, and the money was gone. That was one thing that you experienced about that. But the other one that I was thinking about while I was talking to you, when the mother finds a child missing, if I only had her back, I'd never scold him and so forth. And when she comes back, she's so irritated. She gives him a good spanking anyway, so that's how the frustration's on him. Well, knowing how worried she was, being a sickly kid, that I wouldn't get enough to eat, I thought when I got to Norfolk, I called up and I said, Mom, what do you know? I'm at the captain's table, which was a lie, of course. How can a kid just joining the Navy sits at the captain's table? This was an epic that come up years later. He said, you can go to hell with the captain.
Tell me how you holystone the deck.
All right.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Now we have a locker on the ship called a sand locker, and we have big sandbags. See, now we send a motor launch at a boat on the ship, and they take these sandbags and they go in on the beach, and they fill these sandbags with sand, and then they bring them back, and then they fill the sand locker full of sand. And every Friday was field day, and when we go on deck on Friday morning, why, those brick were regular brick, only they were half brick, see. And then they had a hole. You chiseled out a hole in it, like in the middle of that brick, see. And then you had handles like broom handles. We were just as a, but they issued us these handles. And then you got in line all the way across deck here, see, with these, and then the leading seaman or whoever he was would sprinkle sand and maybe a little lime or something to make your deck look white. Everybody, all the different divisions had a different part of the ship to take care of, see. So they all tried to make their decks look better than somebody else's deck, see. So they would holystone. Well, we'd do about an hour or so before breakfast, and then we'd holystone till.
Now, exactly, what do you do with the brick in the handle? What do you?
Well, you put it in that hole, see, and you just stand up and go just like this, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Their decks were made out of real hard wood, you know, and you'd had your holy stone and put it down there, and that hole I told you had in it. See, well, you put that in there, and then you went back and forth just like this, all just, and then then he would say move up 2 feet or whatever it was, and then we'd get 2 feet more, and then we'd get all our deck that we had would be holy stones like that. Well, then they had a hose that they wash it down, wash the sand all off, and they had waterways that would carry the water off and go back in the ocean. But sometimes we wouldn't get through till 3 o'clock in the afternoon, all day Saturday or Friday, and then we'd have getting ready for inspection on Saturday, and so anyone would come up on deck with dirty shoes like the black gang. Well, they watched them like a hawk. They come out of that fire room or something with them dirty shoes on. They'd keep them off of their deck, I'll tell you for sure.
Well, you know, from my point, now, this gentleman is probably Lewis, is it not?
Lewis. Yeah, just Smitty.
Smitty, you're probably right, because I'm a little hazy about, but the impression that I got, I guess the average layman would get the same way, but I envisioned an actual brick with a pointing with where your handle, with a broom handle, with a long stick, would take that back forth. When it comes, now his sounds more logical with the sand and so forth, but I thought it was already impregnated right in that brick, and we'd back and forth with it, back and forth with it. So I could stand corrected on that, because I probably got the wrong impression after a few years have gone between then and now. And one of the impressions that was not my favorable one regarding the.
What about polishing bright work?
Well, you had the Navy issued bright work polish, see, but it wasn't the best. See. Now, well, they like the deck handles, all brass around the decks and everything, all the handrails and everything. But we polish them every morning. Every morning we polish them. And what we do, we just had a couple of rags and we put it on with one and wipe it and shine it with the other one. But it didn't take long, and the air, the sea air or salt air or something, would turn it. I mean, it wouldn't be shiny long. See?
Now, what is the bright work?
That's brass.
Brass. Like
brass rails on the ladders, and brass rails, and then I'm trying to think. Well, we had a lot of brass on deck. You know, that foot plates and things like that, and especially rails and things that the ladders were made out of. And like I run an officer's boat for 4 years, and we would buy our brightwood polish. We'd take up a collection between us, and we'd go and buy good brightwood polish and it would stay shined. In other words, it wouldn't fade like this others. But this regulation brightwood polish wasn't worth very much. It didn't last very long.
Yeah.
So to keep our boats looking nice, we bought our own brightwood polish.
Did you have bright work and polish also?
How's that?
Did you do that also? Polish bright work?
Again, as I remember that they tried to put me on so many jobs I wasn't equipped to handle when I first came on, especially. They said, I got the right job for you, Jerry, to carry the officers' quarters. And that's where we had a lot of this brass work.
Oh, yeah, you had a lot. But it was inside, see?
Yeah, it was
and
inside.
it stayed good inside.
And no matter how clean it was an all-day job. And actually, it taught us how to loaf. That's about side of it.
Like the same way on a boat. See, they had a paint locker, and we used to, if you wanted paint, the boatswain had to sign it, and you go down and draw what you want. Well, on a boat, the decks on the boat were polished and varnished, all varnished, see? And if you used the regular varnish that they issued to you, it wouldn't be long until it'd start peeling. See? But you could buy your own varnish, and it'd last a lot longer. In other words, make your boat. We spent a lot of money of our own money just to keep our boat looking nice, because it made it easier for us, and if it wasn't clean, you heard about it. See?
Can I ask Louis a question?
Sure.
Louis, you know, strange it may seem, I've lost a lot of the questions most important part of my life. What does the BB stand for? What does BB stand for?
Well, that's just a battleship. BB was.
It's the USS.
Each one of those ships would have a cruiser would be CL, and the battleships would BB. Now that was 37. See, and now like in a fog, if it were foggy and you was trying to get back to the ship, they would ring this 37 on that big bell.
What does the BB stand?
Well, it's battleship. That's all I know. It's just an insignia for a battleship.
Two B's there. And I've asked a lot of people about
no,
that.
all it was
just clear answer.
It was just an insignia for a battleship. Then oil tankers would be O, and cruisers were CL, and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Would you describe your quarters in the ship?
Huh?
Would you
The
describe your quarters
yeah,
on the ship?
Yeah. I was on a 5-inch battery. I was gun captain on this gun. We had 6 guns in my division. Now we lived in a place right here. Now there was a gun sticking out this port here. See, that was a 5-inch gun.
The casemate?
Huh?
Is that in the casemate?
Yes, right. In the casemate. That's right. And we lived in there. Now, when I first went in the Navy, we had hammocks all along here, see. And then over in that corner, I'm saying, we had called a hammock netting. And when you got up in the morning, like, you had to lash your hammock. You had to, it's long, you know, and you take it off of those, well, you lash your hammock while it's still up there, see. You had a lash rope, and then you put it in the hammock netting, see. And then at 7 o'clock at night, they would pass a word, stand by your hammock, see. And then they'd give you the word, take your hammock, and then you hung them up on where you slept, see. And then you could tighten them up, and the tighter that you tighten that hammock, the better it slept, see. Because if you didn't, you'd go down and sleep like this, see. But if you tightened it, which was hard to sleep in when it was tight, you had to learn to, in other words, if you turned and didn't know what you're doing, you just dump yourself right out on the floor, on deck.
Do you have a locker?
Yes. No. Not the... Now, you heard him say something about a ditty box. Well, that was a little box about 12 inches square and had a lid on it. And we kept all our sewing gear, all our thread and needles and things like that. It was in this little box. And everybody had one. And they just stored them right along bulkheads. And now they had mess tables, see, that where we eat on then, but they went up on that when the mess cook got through. Well, they had racks up there, and they put them in, and then they put their legs up like this. All the mess tables were up off of the deck out of the way. See? And then when the mess cooks would get ready to serve chow, they'd take them down, put them in our casemate. We eat there, slept there, and everything right in that casemate. See? And it was big, but on our hammocks now, we had to scrub them every 2 weeks. Well, they would they had a hammock locker down below, and you would had your name, had your number on your hammock. So you had a billet number, and that was on your hammock. Well, when you scrubbed your hammock and put it to dry, well then next day you turn your hammocks, your clean hammocks in, and they go down the hammock locker. See? And then when every 2 weeks they'd go down, get the hammocks, bring them up, and you'd shift, put clean hammocks up here, and then you had to wash these, dry them, and then turn them back into the thing. And
do you remember how they used to waken you from ready for mess while you was in your hammock? How were they waking you to get ready to get up in the morning?
They'd readily.
More than that, though. Remember when they used to come and say, "Get up, hit you underneath it."
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Well, if you didn't
let go of your socks and grab.
Yeah, if you didn't get up, they'd wrap that thing.
Underneath it.
Yeah, they go underneath that, hit the hammock to get up. See, but you better get up because otherwise they hit it with a stick next time.
And another thing that this will be the last question I'll ask this gentleman.
I've seen the boatsmates that guys, they've been ashore and they just cut the damn line down. He comes. He had to get out of there.
Have they got what do they call like a tunnel? It looks like a funnel. Well, what do they call it aboard ship?
The what?
Aboard ship, they're like an open tunnel that led down to the double decks going down below.
Passageway.
Well, no. The reason I asked, they would lower me down to do the bottom rope, lower me down. As soon as I got to the bottom, I didn't do any work. My worry was how I was going to get myself up again because you could hardly.
They lower you down through a hatch.
Yes, it was set down on the rope. When I got down the bottom, I said, "How the hell was my poor strength?" Then they had battle stations. As soon as that happened, they start shooting a side blast. I got so damn scared, I come up like a rabbit as quick as they make it. But that's some of the things the odds and ends I remember from time to time.
How often did the Oklahoma have to take on coal?
Well, I wasn't on when it was coal burner. He was.
No.
Oklahoma.
No,
wasn't it an oil burner?
Oklahoma never was a coal burner.
No, sir. That's right.
No, Oklahoma never was a coal burner.
That's why I chose it, because they did.
Oh, okay.
No, like the Texas and Texas and Arkansas, and they were coal burners, and they converted them back to oil burners. But they used to be coal burners. But Oklahoma was oil burner, was built as an oil burner.
You asked me why it depressed me, but that's one of the things I wanted to get aboard because I wouldn't have to shovel any coal. That was one of the things I wanted to get on it.
What divisions were you a member of?
Well, I was in the deck force. They called it the deck force. Well, the deck force. Now, let's say they had 4 turrets on the big. 4 turrets. They were 14-inch guns, and like I was in one. It was a 5-inch gun, 51 caliber. Their shells only weighed 50 pounds, but these 14-inch, they weighed 1,400 pounds. See? But now what was I going to tell you? What did you ask me?
Let me see. What division you were in?
I was, yeah. Each one, now, Turret 1 was the 1st division. Yeah. Turret 2, Turret 3, Turret 4. See? And then this 5-inch was 5th division. I was in the 5th division. See? Okay. And then they had an anti-aircraft division, which was the 6th division. And then that was took care of all the guns. And then they had the signal division that did all the signals work. And they had the quartermasters. And then they went down to the black gang, which was the B or the A. Well, no, the B was water tenders, and they worked the boilers, and the A division was on the motors down there. And They were all in divisions. That was where the numbers.
Yeah. What division were you in?
You know, I was hoping you wouldn't ask that, because I've been asking everybody. First of all, I apologize for my ignorance. I asked, wanted to find out, I didn't know whether each ship had the same division, like 1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
4, 5.
Yeah.
So now, if I was a deckman, what would I be in the
Deck?
Yes.
You'd be in one of the first 5 divisions.
One of the first 5, but then,
Where was your station during general quarters? Where's your battle station?
Where did you go in general quarters, son?
I went up on the main mast, but climbing up there with reading my instruments.
Okay, you were up on the mast?
Yes.
Was you in the fire control division?
No.
Where was your station during general quarters?
Gun.
On the 5-inch gun?
The 5-inch gun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was your duty during general quarters? What
Well,
did you do?
When I first started, I was called a first shellman. See? And what they do, the gun captain, I later, a year or so later, or a couple of years, I got to be gun captain. Well, the gun captain opens the plug, see, and then they have a firing lock on there, and he puts a shell in there to fire the gun. See? Well, while he's doing, he pulls this out and pulls her back and out of the way. It just comes back like this, and then he puts that in, and when he opens the plug, a guy puts a tray in there so it won't. These are all threads, you know, that go together, so they don't jam them up. See, they lay the tray in there, and the first shellman throws the shell in, and then the powderman throws the powder in. And time you get this done, see, why they got to be done, because you don't even look. You just close your plug, see, and then you holler, "Ready, one." You're ready to fire. Then when it fires, well, you bring it open, and they load it, and you go back and ready to, see. And well, that's as well as I can explain.
How many rounds could you fire in 1 minute with a 5-inch gun?
Well, they did. Now we had in practice we had a short range practice and a long range practice. Well, short range practice, we would fire 8 shots, but they would average about a minute a shot, about a minute to get a shot loaded and ready to go again. But then a long range, we didn't have to hurry like that. Short range was where we qualified for first class gun captain or first class pointer or something like that. That was short range, and that was fast. But long range, we had plenty of time, took our time, and I would say 2 minutes they'd fire every 2 minutes.
Do you know why they took the cage mast off and put the tripod mast on the Oklahoma?
Well, only thing I never did know exactly why, but I just figured that the cage masts were so easily hit. You know, it was easy hit, and the tripods, you was pretty lucky if you hit one of them, see? And that's the reason they did it. See?
And what were in the rooms on top of the mast?
What were they?
Yeah, what was inside those rooms?
Well, it just had a place up there where the very small
Crow's nest.
That's crow's nest, yeah. That's where they had a watch went up there, watching the crow's nest, and then later on they put a radar on top of that. See, but it wasn't any room up there. It was just a little place around it. You could walk around the mast, not as big as this, but and he had glasses up there that he would look ahead for things, you know.
Well, I think we have a good interview.
Well, I've enjoyed it.
Whenever anyone mentions the USS Oklahoma, what do you think of?
Well, I tell you, the Oklahoma was known throughout the fleet as one of the best ships in the fleet. In other words, it was more like home. You had better shipmates. Everybody seemed to be, and it was realized through the fleet that the Oklahoma was almost the queen of the sea. She was just. You had better people and living conditions and everything else were better on the Oklahoma. Now we thought so, see, but so that really is what counted. What you think of your ship is what counted, and we thought that was the best ship in the Navy.
Was harmony, right? The men were harmony.
Yeah. Whenever anyone mentions the Oklahoma, what do you think of?
If I haven't convinced you what I thought of it by now, I don't think I can convince you any more than that. But I think of Thanksgiving. Now, we wondered what we were going to have. They had so many turkeys aboard ship that, would you believe, there was enough turkeys aboard ship to give each man a whole turkey. Do you remember that?
Yeah, what?
To give each man I forget that it's World War I and World War II, but I figured he should know what they did for World War I. But in my time, they had so many turkeys aboard ship that they had a whole turkey for each man.
No, they didn't though.
I was going to ask, what did you do on Armistice Day?
Recently?
No, 1918, the day the war ended.
Well, the flags went up, and they said homeward bound. Everybody sang homeward bound.
When you came back to the States, did you pass the Statue of Liberty?
Did you go into New York?
Well, when we came back to the States, we marched down Broadway.
But did you sail in the New York Harbor?
Yes.
You know, he passed it.
Did you pass the Statue of Liberty?
Yes, you
think
did.
so, but
Yes, you
you
did.
would have
You
to.
had to.
Yeah.
And I own property right near there, and I didn't know the value of the Fulton Fish Market and Wall Street, and the Statue of Liberty is all one picture. That's hard to believe. The Fulton Fish Market, where I was a kid before I joined the Navy, and my folks owned it, and when they died, it was my property. As a kid, I still owned it. The streets were made of cobblestones. They had a one-track drawn by a horse. Would pull it one way, and when they came back, the horse would be on the other way, draw it until it come back. All in the side of the Statue of Liberty. The ships would come with their load of fish right up to the wharf, all within the side of the Statue of Liberty and Wall Street. Now, isn't that something?
That is.
Well, I'll tell you, Armistice, when they surrendered, when the Japs surrendered, well, naturally, our last battle was Okinawa.
Yeah.
We had a pretty bad time there. And then we loaded and got ready. We was loaded. We was out to another island, out from Japan. As far as you could see was ships, just all loaded for bear, ready to go into Japan. And so when I don't know, but when we got the word that the war was over, well, naturally we cheered, but that's about all it was to it, because we were a long ways from home, and we were loaded with troops and everything, ready to do battle, and we just couldn't believe it. That's all. Just because we knew we
stop in the streets, hug and kiss one another.
But all we done was we had to come back all the way to the States, and some of us didn't even come back. I mean, they let the ones that had enough points you know, that would come back. But us guys that was in the regular Navy, we didn't come back for a long time.
Yeah. Were you at the Battle of Coral Sea? The
What?
Battle of Coral Sea, down by Australia.
No, no. I was Saipan. I was at Okinawa. But all through those islands when the war first started, we took one of them islands nearly every one a week almost. We'd have a battle every week. And
what were those battles like?
well, those islands out there, why our
Skirmishes like that.
well, our ships, all they had was 5-inch battery on them, see, and and on those islands, and they couldn't reach. We'd stay out of their reach, out of their range, see, and we could see their shells falling short all along. But then we would just bombard them with our 14-inch, and then the planes would take over, and we'd just bomb them till they completely destroyed, and then go on. We didn't even take them. We just go. We never did go on the island. We just bomb them till everything was gone, and we'd go ahead. But we had Japan then had some of those islands that had planes on them, though, see, and we didn't know when we would be attacked by their planes, which was quite often.
Well, anything else about the Oklahoma you all want to?
I think that's just about it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Well, I had
One plane, call it one plane, also light plane, and one anti-aircraft. That's the one I thought was a 3-inch gun.
Did the Oklahoma have torpedoes in the First World War?
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
yes.
Right.
How were they fired?
Well, they fired up right on the water line.
Okay. Well, did you have torpedo tubes, or how did they?
See, they trained those tubes out.
Yeah, they could direct them.
See, they trained them out. But I understand I wasn't on there when they had them.
Yeah.
But from just reading, I understand that's the way they.
Now, was they?
Still, pardon me, but
Yeah. Go ahead.
and in those days, I don't think they believed it themselves, and neither did I, but we said the next war will be a push-button war. Little did they realize how much the truth they were talking, because after that it was a matter of push buttons, everything by pressing a button. Those days, like I said, we had to put the shell in place, and then the powder afterwards.
See, they had a torpedo room down below, see? And that's where they loaded. That's where they loaded them, and then they trained them out.
Was it in the front of the ship, or?
Yeah, it's just above the water line.
Okay.
And but when they remodernized them, they took these torpedo tubes off of them, because all those ships, older ships, had torpedoes on them.
Yeah.
But
now, if I can't walk, I'm going to blame you.
Okay.